Chapter 1. March 1805, Grosvenor Square, London. Sounds of the bustle of opening up a long-dormant residence erupted in all corners of the late Earl of Poole's London house, most favourably situated on Grosvenor Square. Lady Dorothea Rowlandson, eldest sister to the next Earl in line, sat at the Hepplewhite writing desk, in a bedroom she'd only once had occasion to use, and sifted through the stack of letters she had brought to London with her. Every one of them was addressed to the Right Honourable, the Earl of Poole. 2 letters were covered with the spidery handwriting of Lady Cooper and the more youthful scrawl of Lady Jersey, both of whom she had learned were London's arbiters of the temps in their role as patronesses of Almack's. It should be a natural thing that Dorothea and her sister be accepted into society because of their father. But such a conclusion was not foregone, since they had never been introduced to any of the patronesses, nor anyone else of consequence really. Other letters sported more masculine scrawls, some names with which she was familiar, such as Lord Berkeley, but most with whom she was not. More than one letter was written by the hand of a certain Archibald Stanley, but she could not tell from the contents of his letter if he was a gentleman or a merchant, and therefore could not be sure if he would be a useful person to know. Amidst the more usual correspondence were also scented letters from women with the names Mrs. Grace Plummet and Mrs. Rosalie Kavanagh, but the letters dripped with more intimacy than was proper between a married earl and a woman betrothed to someone else. Dorothea had not troubled her mother with the task of looking through any of the correspondence from her late father, and had certainly not made her privy to those letters. Once again she sorted the correspondence into stacks, hesitating over certain names, whose consequence in the temps she could not immediately divine. Then smoothing her hand over those letters more pertinent to her quest, all of them softened with age, and rereading, she allowed her gaze to roam around the unfamiliar room. Behind her, a fire crackled in the grate of the marble fireplace. On the opposite corner of the front-facing bedroom was a bookcase filled with books on history and agriculture she was unlikely to read. Not a novel to be found among them. The 4-poster bed was made up with a white and blue counterpane and pale blue bed curtains, and the dressing-table held a mirror that seemed to have been recently replaced, as the glass had not yet blackened with age. She looked down at Mr. Stanley's name again, puzzling over the contents of one letter, which mentioned investments, but no gentlemen's clubs. It included another one of his invitations to a cosy evening's entertainment at his house, which left her none the wiser about his importance to her late father. But now was not the time to ruminate on things she had no answer to, or to wonder again at their father's neglect in bringing them to society's notice. Time was running out before her first London event that evening, and she must learn as much as she could about its members, so she might take her place among them without faltering. "Dorothea?" Her mother stood at the bedroom door, her hand on its post, as though to prop herself up. Lady Poole was a faded version of her second eldest daughter Sophia, although very little of the beauty she had bequeathed her remained in evidence. She cast a pleading glance at her daughter. "I do believe we should send our regrets for this evening. We have only arrived in London this morning. It is all too much to contemplate going out again so soon." "We shall not stay late, mamma," Dorothea soothed, coming over to take her mother's arm. "There are several hours yet in which you might rest. Let me take you to your room, and I'll have Mrs. Platt bring you a tray with tea." "I fear I shall need days and not hours to recover. I was already worn through from worry over Tilly." Her frail mother fussed in that way back to her room, but allowed herself to be persuaded of the necessity of attending the opening ball, adding only how regrettable it was that such a thing must be undertaken without the escort of their father, who had been most attentive to family duties up until his death. At such a fictitious tribute, Dorothea pinched her lips together to prevent a wayward retort, and went over to tug on the bell-pull, returning to settle her mother comfortably into a chair. After giving the orders to Mrs. Platt, and reassuring her mother as well as she could, she strode back to her room.